Okay, so these are basically the topics covered during the last census, the last implemented census, 2011. Now, a new census was supposed to come in 2021. Um, but due to the COVID-19 situation, the implementation and the plans for this census might change. So, but of course, there are some documents for preparation for this census, some information in the news, some declarations of politicians or responsibles from NSA. So again, you have a class exercise. Remember, these classes exercises are very important for remote teaching. This exercise consists on finding as much information as you can from the census 2021 in terms of implementation period, if it is going to be implemented in 21, 22, 23, if it is suspended until new further notice, how many people is going to be involved, which kind of people, do they need GIS or remote sensing specialist or mathematician or statistician, the type of data which is going to be collected, are going to try to collect lifestyle, or are going to include, I don't know, more detailed information about salaries, all these things, okay? So, and for this purpose, you should use any means that you might have available to collect data. You might maybe know someone in NSA, call NSA, check in the internet, etc. Okay, you can do this exercise as a group. Okay, so we continue. This is another reference document, very interesting, which talks about the projections. Okay, normally what they do is they take documents about, for example, two consecutive census, census 2001, census 2011, and then they see which are the trends, the tendency in terms of population, in terms of unemployment, and then they create they put this into a mathematical model, and then they create projections for 5, 10, 20, 30 years. This is a document where you find long-term projections for 20 or 30 years long. So just open it, browse it, and you will, I think, get a lot of surprises in terms of how the country will be in the 2041 or 2040. And yeah, and this information is very important because it's essential to plan the development of the country. So basically, for example, to understand which type of infrastructure will be needed in 2030 or in 2040. Yeah, and also not only in terms of infrastructure, in terms of how the society is going to be designed, is going to be built in 20 or 30 years. Okay, it's going to be the population, old population. So therefore, maybe we need to transform the social security system or the health system, or is going to be a job population. So that means we need to create a lot of new jobs. It's going to be a society full of pensioners, full of kids. So this is very important in order to build a very sustainable and reliable public system, public sector. So as I mentioned before, the way they calculate these projections is basically taking two standpoints, data from two standpoints, and entering everything into a mathematical model. But don't forget, this is a estimation, so there is still a source of error here because it's not real data counted, collected on the field through questionnaires or through direct measurements. It's a model, okay? And this model has also some frame for errors, and these errors also fall under what we call ecological fallacy. Okay, so this is something you should take into account all the time. The last block is which will be covered in this unit, is the dwelling frame. The dwelling frame is is a part of the census which collects information about dwelling units. Dwelling units are settlements, generally informal settlements in the rural areas, which are not part of the official cadastre, but it should be also considered as as uh, as units, as places where there are some economical or social activity. For example, a household, yeah, a rural household from a Himba village or any other, which is, as you know, very normal in Namibia. So for this purpose, for the purpose of census enumeration, and dwelling unit is defined as a residential place occupied by a household at the time of the census. The dwelling unit may be vacant or shared by more than one household, and the housing unit on a permanent building, including traditional housing unit, mobile caravans, and informal structure, are referred to as dwelling units. So all these things are should be included as part of the dwelling frame. In 2011 census, there was a requirement to map these dwelling units. So there was a dwelling unit frame as a baseline for updating enumeration areas of the 2001 census. Okay, it was a very, very important addition in the 2011 census, first time made in Namibia. And this is where specialist in GIS and remote sensing come, because here there is a demand to staff or workers with skills in GPS, PDA, aerial photograph management or analysis, as well as remote sensing. Yeah. Um, Problems with the dwelling unit. Okay, just another definition of the dwelling frame is the database that contains point locations with attributes that allow to analyze, use, access to service, condition, location, and variety of aspects that help defining enumeration areas. So the ultimate goal of this dwelling unit is to define more accurate enumeration areas, and also to give address to the rural people. Yeah, to give a coordinate. A coordinate at the end of the day is an address, so it should be also used for this purpose. Topics covered during the fieldwork. Remember, they record locations with attributes. So which attributes are covered during this process? The use of the feature, the use of the building unit, how they are built, the building material, what is the name of the headman, whether they have access to water and sanitation, if there is public transport available for people living there. So important guidelines, they are based on point locations, the dwelling frame. The spatial analysis of the point data is easier when you use point locations in comparison to polygons. And the data is presented at location level, not at area level. Okay, this is how it looks like. Problems, limitations of the dwelling unit. These are field surveys points, and sometimes they do not fall on the building. Okay, sometimes they collect a GPS point and it's not falling exactly on the building, but a few meters away on the road, on yeah, some buildings close. So there are some inaccuracies here, because it's not always easy to go with a GPS, get inside someone's house and collect the point there. It should be collected a bit far away, for example, from a car, which is close to the household itself. Incomplete in terms of geographically incomplete, because some areas are not covered. It's a huge country and not everything can be covered. There's an emphasis on informal and less formalized area, so this is where the effort should be put, and it's very required to be combined with other official databases like cadastral or other business inventories in Namibia or in Windhoek, to cross-check and make sure that all databases are aligned. Okay, so this again the problem which I was referring to before. There is maybe inaccuracies due to the coordinate system use, also due to the GPS precision, or due to the feasibility to physically go to the place and measure the point where it is, because normally you cannot get inside the house, and even if you get inside, for example, a shack, or maybe the GPS does not have any signal inside. Yeah, so of course there are some inaccuracies attached to this practice, to this dealing frame measurements. Okay, so we finish here the presentation and move to the next one.